This week on New to You, musicals, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Hey everybody, welcome to the New to You show, a review and discussion podcast for stuff. This week's theme is kicking off musicals, and I am one of your hosts, John Holt. With me is
Julian Cage.
And our guest,
Kristen Sherman.
Hey, Kristen. So you work with us, or you work with me, not with Jules anymore.
That's right.
And you have a background in musical theater.
I do. I've pretty much studied musicals my whole entire life. And then, so I went to performing arts high school and then kind of knew from an early age that was one of my passions. So from high school, I got my degree in musical theater. So I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Point Park University in musical theater.
And have you been in, were you in productions throughout that entire run, like through high school and college?
Yeah, I've been doing musicals since the second grade.
And do you still have opportunities to get in and do musicals?
Yeah, a little bit less so since I started working with you, but it's still definitely a big part of my life.
We put a big kibosh. We said
no musicals.
No musicals. Only straight Shakespeare.
Also fine with me.
We're going to switch up our format, and what's new to me or to whoever is going to come at the end. So if you're looking for it, don't even bother.
We don't even need to say
it.
We don't even say.
All right, so we're going to roll right into our topic, and actually, my pick is up this week.
But I could swear by your expression that the pain down in your soul was the same as the one down in mine. Oh, that's the pain that cuts a straight line down through the heart. We call it love. We wrapped our arms around each other, try to shove.
I am bringing Hedwig and the Angry Inch to the table. It is a production that was off-Broadway, came out in 98. And was made into a film, I think in 2001. Yeah?
I think that sounds about
then
right.
went on to Broadway in 2014.
Oh.
So it had some UK tours and West End tours, but it really was 13 years in the making towards gestating to become an actual Broadway musical.
I'm surprised it took that long because the film was very successful.
Yeah, but we'll get into this probably a little more, but there is this weird when do you make a musical a film? When do you make a film a musical?
And can it survive that?
Right.
So because if somebody can go and experience Hedwig, which is kind of a cult thing, for $10 or $20 or $3 at the rental theater versus paying $50 or $100 or $300 for a Broadway ticket.
Yeah,
what are they going to do? That's why you don't have Wicked. Wicked has been on stage for how long, and there's no movie for it. And Into the Woods, which may come up later,
Maybe.
had a similar. There are a slew of movies that are musical movies. Like Les Mis had been out for how long? 20 years or something at least.
At least, yeah.
Before they made a movie of it, and now they're even remaking. Cats is coming out on stage again. And they've been talking about making a movie of Cats.
Right. It's just so difficult because then you have this little bit of a dynamic because then do these musicals work as film?
Yeah, that's always debatable. But what's interesting, too, is that the movie can serve as marketing for the musical and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think I might put myself in that category that I'm not a musical person, or I wasn't, and it was through movie adaptations that that opened me up to that. And I've seen a bunch of musicals that I saw first as films, so I don't know. It can work both ways, kind of. Yeah.
But I guess it's a matter of timing and volume, how many people.
Yeah, that's true.
Treat it like that, and if someone's going to go to Broadway to see a Broadway movie or musical, are they going to go to one that just came out in theaters 5 years ago, or are they going to go to the one that is big and is only available in New York?
And it's true that it's not maybe it is now, but on the surface it doesn't seem like a general audience kind of thing. But why don't you tell us a little bit about it first for those who don't know?
Okay,
and
so
we'll delve into it more.
The book was written by John Cameron Mitchell, and the music and lyrics were by Stephen Trask. And the genesis of this, there was a club in...
And for those who don't know, the book is like the script for a musical, right?
That's a Kristen question.
Right. The book is the script for a musical. You have two different kinds per se. So you have book musicals, and then you have musicals that are sung through, kind of like maybe Jesus Christ Superstar, which we might talk about later too.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, Hedwig really is mostly sung through, isn't it? There's
some interstitial dialogue, but yeah, it's
right.
mostly
It's
done
mostly
through
sung
the song.
through. Yeah.
Especially the earlier incarnations.
Yeah. Well, let's not digress. We'll get back to that.
So there was basically like a punk rock LGBT, like it was a trans and drag punk rock club called the Squeeze Box. And this was it not Don King. There was a dude who passed away not too long ago who was sort of the master of this domain. And Stephen Trask was a DJ and a guy who sort of organized and orchestrated acts. And John Cameron Mitchell was an actor in New York. He was on TV. He was in like MacGyver. He was doing commercials. He was working. He was doing shows. And then at night, the let off steam was going and performing in drag punk or like, queer punk bands. Basically, that was kind of the fun. And through that, they developed this show, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which there's like aspects of autobiography. And I think in the marketing, they played up the autobiography a little more. And there's some like weirdness. Like John Cameron Mitchell is not, he played Hedwig for a long time and was Hedwig in the movie and on stage. He's not transgendered. He's not German. We'll get into all this backstory of Hedwig. He's he's not genderqueer. He's a gay man who was into music and into drag and wrote this story and he's put some personal history, and he's more of the maybe your Tommy Gnosis character a little bit more, where he was being babysat by a woman who had this weird past. She was also a prostitute, and that's where the Hedwig character comes in. So as he's writing the book, it's a little more autobiographical and about the Tommy Gnosis young rock star being seduced by this strange woman who is like a non-sexual. She doesn't have, like Hedwig identifies female, but is, it has a botched sex change operation. So there's this, Hedwig is genderqueer in that she doesn't have a clear she doesn't clearly go into the sexual binary. She's kind of bisexual. It fits in that box. That's the slot that definition flies into. And as they're writing the books, I think it was Stephen Trask said, this Hedwig character is the one to focus on. That's the one to make the show about. Yeah. Instead of focusing on this rock star and his sideshow, who's kind of the fun character, make the sideshow character the main character, and that's how you tell your story. So which was
really smart advice. It's definitely one of the most interesting things about it is it's sort of like the person who's been sidelined by the famous person is kind of like why don't you give us a brief synopsis?
So this character Hedwig starts off as Hansel living in East Berlin. His mother, when they were dividing Germany, decided, hey, I want him to live in East Germany. So brings him over there, and he is the son of a GI. And the mother, his mother is his mother, and there's this GI, and it's implied that the GI may have sexually abused him, or that they had a relationship when he was very young, and that he already was identifying as gay then or something. Hedwig was, she now, and she eventually grows up. She's listening to rock music and grows up and meets an American GI, and the wall is still up at this point. And he's like, hey, you're beautiful. Get a sex change operation so we can get married. And then that way you can come across into America with me. And she gets the operation, but unfortunately, it's a failed operation. It's, kind of back alley. And she's left with a small...
An angry inch.
An angry inch. A small, lump of flesh and a scar. And that's it. That's her life. She moves to America, is living with this GI in a trailer park. And the wall comes down right after he breaks up with her for another boy. So now she's alone and living in a trailer park in America and has this confused sexual identity and is a little lost and forms up to get over herself a little bit. She forms a punk band and expresses herself through the music that enthralled her and kind of was her passion and her escape when she was living in East Germany. And through that starts to express herself more, get out there. And one of the Christian military sons that she babysits thinks she's hot and falls for her, and she kind of seduces him with her music. They have an affair. They have a love thing going on. And then when they kind of get into actual like more physical contact, he has trouble dealing with her, otherness. And that's an issue. And she reacts violently to that. And so there's like an aspect they play. It's nice. They play with like the aspect of people with confusion who will lash out and be more violent in these situations, and pushes this kid away. But over the course of their relationship, they've collaborated and she's shared more of her music with him. And he goes and takes that and becomes a star, becomes like a young Marilyn Manson style, like glam rocker, and is huge. And she is like, he stole all my songs. Like, he's telling my stories, and gets on this plan where then this is sort of the conceit of the show. In the initial stage play, you're basically watching a show where she is kind of playing and he's playing next door kind of thing. So that's the whole play, is you're watching this show, and as she's playing, she's telling the story of her development and this love affair. And then sort of there's a little bit of an aftermath where after following this guy around in the movie, she's more following.
So he's on tour and she's playing
also
like
on
dive
tour.
Bars and cafes.
Right. And in the film, the conceit is that she's always playing the same like fish and chips like franchise, this place called Bilgewater's. And so you just kind of go from Bilgewater to Bilgewater, and they're always kind of the same, like a buffet salad bar place with people who are really confused as to why this sort of like glam punk rocker drag guy or woman in drag is yelling these crazy songs at them. And over the course of things, she gets a little bit more of a cult following, and so her audiences are getting bigger. And her and Tommy run into each other, and in the play, I think they crash into a school bus while she's giving him a blowjob. In the film, they're like making out and run into a news truck and smash into that. And that his career spirals down and hers explodes. So they kind of have this reverse, pretty heavy. And that's where he's at. But he gets the success. She gets the success that she's chasing, but loses the love. And so the end is about coming to terms with who she is as Hedwig, kind of like finding that self-love again and finding a little bit of like completeness and self-identity. And so because there's a side story where she has a husband who is usually played by a woman in the shows, who is cross-dressing as well as a man, who she's very abusive to the point of like tearing up his passport when he's trying to get out of the relationship, which strands him because her whole band are these Eastern European guys, like random people. And so she, her husband tries to get away and she doesn't allow that. And she, at the end, also gives away her wig to him and allows him to move, to take his place. He starts singing her song, and it's sort of he lets go of the Tommynosis pain and lets go of the person he's hurting and holding back in sort of projection, or sort of like redirecting the hurt that's been done to her onto her husband. And then once she's let go of all that, she's free a little bit. And she's also at that point stripped down, so she's now she's wearing what Tommynosis wears normally. And there's a song where in the musical she is playing Tommynosis for a song, and then kind of converts back into being Hedwig, which is an amalgam of the two characters. And that's the show. So the development of it, they did the stage show for a while, and it was just like something where they just performed like a band. It really was a punk band. They would put up flyers. Hedwig and the Angry Inch was a punk band.
Yeah.
And the mythology of it, and John Cameron Mitchell's very big into mythology, and so the larger arc of the mythology of the character started to grow as they played with the character and what they wanted to do with the show, and then codified it in the book, codified it with the lyrics, and it was an off-Broadway show at that point. Mm-hmm. And then pretty soon after, he directed the film. John Cameron Mitchell directed the film, and there's some adjustments, but really it's sort of it's actually taking some of the implied action from the musical, from the stage production, and making it real kind of thing. Having them move from location to location, showing the hotel rooms where some of the between the scene drama takes place, and there's also some great animation that's in there. So that's Hedwig. Yeah, really like the show. Some of my favorite songs in it are probably Midnight Radio, really good, and Wicked Town's really good. I kind of like those ballad songs a lot. But all throughout, all the songs are really good. They're memorable. They have a lot of good hooks, and the sort of melding of the punk rock with the it's a rock opera as well, so it has that.
Emily Hubley.
Who's
pretty famous in animation circles. She directed it, and then our friend Celia Bullwinkle was an animator on that as well.
All right.
Shout out to Celia. And also, I think, again, I saw the film first, and he also happened to be a really creative film director, I think. The movie adaptation really I thought was great, and he went on to direct a couple other films as well.
Then, of course, some 13 years later, they made a stage production of it. And was it? The first Broadway production was Neil Patrick Harris at the Belasco.
Oh, okay.
Lena Hall was playing the husband, Yitzhak.
Right.
And I think she's now actually still on it and has.
She is. They just started the Broadway tour.
And she plays Yitzhak, but also, this is very rare, 1 or 2 nights a week, plays Hedwig.
Right.
Which is
that's cool.
For a first time for the character, and a kind of a first time, and they don't do that very often unless there's it's a arranged substitution versus a necessary substitution. Mm-mm. Yeah, so that's the show. You had some great people who've stood in. Michael C. Hall from Dexter, Taye Diggs played him. It's a pretty interesting Darren Criss,
who's also leading the tour right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, John Cameron Mitchell came back for a season in 2015.
Oh, okay.
After Neil Patrick Harris.
So who was playing in the version you shared with us on YouTube? Who was playing Hedwig? Do you know?
I think that I don't know. I think one of them I shared was John Cameron Mitchell. It was the stage production of it.
Gotcha. I think the full version wasn't him though.
Yeah, I don't recall.
It might have been Darren Criss.
Yeah.
And
so was that the Broadway production?
No.
No, okay.
No, I don't think so.
So that was one of the
it was one of the earlier ones.
I was surprised having only seen the film, I was surprised how kind of intimate it felt. And it really felt more like a the stage show really felt like a concert, in the setup, and it was really much more of a one-person show than I expected.
Yeah.
It's really one person carrying it and being very talking to the audience directly. So, that's I think a big plus or a big change over the film that you would get seeing it live. It definitely had a very different vibe.
Right. They break that fourth wall a lot, which makes it more like a concert.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I totally why, I think it gives it a lot of reasons to see it live versus the film. It's a very different kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and now I guess they've added this weird element where that the conceit is that Hurt Locker the musical was being put on and got canceled. And so she just was able to convince the director to let her use the stage and set for Hurt Locker the musical to have her show on there. So that's the kind of new setup. So there's faux playbill chatter back to the Hurt Locker and some notes back to it.
I have to be honest, I wasn't as familiar as I think I should have been with this musical prior to you announcing that it was your choice. But, needless to say, I did a lot of research on it and watched a lot of videos. And one thing that kind of struck me was just the opening song. What is it? The Origin of Love.
Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about the mythology that James Cameron Mitchell kind of threw in there.
I've been saying John all this time. Probably. It's John Cameron Mitchell.
John Cameron. Sorry, I'm
saved
totally
myself.
getting it confused. You saved me, actually. The John Cameron Mitchell throws in there. And you can probably do it a little bit more justice because you're a bit more familiar just like with the Daughters of the Moon, or is it the Daughters of...
Yeah, that was from, is it Aristophanes? There's a speech in Plato's, in a Plato's something. But there's a whole, like, there's a philosopher in Plato's big book that where this philosopher lays out this concept of creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a Greek mythology. And then he folds in Zeus and some other gods into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Sumerians.
So then what is the case that you have the Daughters of the Moon or...
Plato's Symposium, yeah.
What are the three examples that they use in the song?
Yeah, the children of the sun
Children of the
is
sun.
man and man. It's actually children of the earth are woman and woman, because it's like Earth Mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the children of the moon are man and woman back to back, like a spoon stuck on a fork.
Right, I remember that example. I
Yeah,
think
there's-
there was like that sap in me that was like, oh, this is beautiful.
And the animation's really nice during that part too.
Yeah.
The nods to like glam rock and to a lot of like classic rockers is really nice. And I don't know, it's part of this sort of development of trans and drag being, I don't know, more accepted. I think like the fact that Hedwig, it was John Cameron Mitchell said in an interview that he probably couldn't get the movie made nowadays more because of how movies are made. Like it was an easier time in 2001 to make a movie, which is true. You know, you had sort of this a little bit of a Wild West with indies. Things hadn't codified as much after the big indie revolution in the 90s. So
And there was more money going around too.
yeah, so it was a little easier for this grassroots musical to be made into a movie. And it's actually very similar to how Rocky Horror Picture Show got made, where they kind of went from small London productions to medium-sized cult hit LA, New York productions, and then they were making a movie pretty soon after they'd hit the stage. So, and a lot of the cast from the stage show was in the movie. So it was a very similar sort of parallel path of growth, very, like pretty organic, going from sort of cult to film. And that may be why, as we were talking before, it's harder for films to get, or musicals to get made into film or vice versa. Maybe it's in those cases where it's more of a cult thing, when it's an off-Broadway production, to get made into a full film because, you know, there's maybe less stakes, or it's already, you know, it's just so small anyways. I don't know. And again, maybe nowadays it's even harder to do.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you don't see a lot of is let's see. So the like whole acceptance of like LGBT people and people who, you know, are the other. Like it's in Rocky Horror, it was definitely like, woo, scandalous. But you had people, it's like, you know, the 70s, 80s, you had people who were glammed out, and you had this sort of like asexuality and sort of mixed up sexuality that was being played with in rock and roll. And I think stage has always had that acceptable. I mean, just having the fact that you couldn't have women on the stage, and so you had guys playing women, and there's sort of people who are, you know, having to hide themselves in society, being able to put on roles where they could maybe be themselves more, or be someone other than the role that they always have to play. You know, I think there's definitely a place where that all lives together. And so in Rocky Horror, that was it. It was expressed, and people enjoyed it, and it let the sort of vanilla normies enjoy that too, and that exploded a little bit. And I think it's even
a little more camp in Rocky than in this.
And in this, I mean, there's still the camp aspect, but it's aware. It's very self-aware, and I think that, you know, I don't want to give it too much weight, but it was definitely coming at a point when people were becoming more accepting, and you know, you had bad examples of like people in drag, like Tu Wong Fu was the one with like Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes doing drag. It was basically a play on Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and it was kind of crass and kind of rude and insensitive. And this is sort of like coming from a place of people who know it and know when it's okay to play with it and to make a joke. Like they know when this is actually funny. This isn't just something you don't understand, and therefore you can laugh at it.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about Hedwig, and it's nice that, and maybe that's why it took till 2014 for it to become interesting enough and accepted enough that people would come and watch it on Broadway and pay money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So had you listened or watched the show at all, Kristen, before this?
I had listened to it a little bit, but not enough to be an expert or to say, "Oh, Hedwig, yeah, I know that, I know that one." I think piggybacking a little bit on what you said in terms of casting for this, what I found really interesting was, just to throw out another musical, Rocky Horror. They have, is it the live? I think they have a live version coming up.
Laverne Cox,
Laverne Cox is
October
playing.
20th. Yeah.
Yeah. And having Laverne Cox play
Frankenfurter.
brings out this. I read an article recently, and I forget where it was published, but they kind of talked on the subject of, okay, so if you have a trans character, is it best to then cast that role with do you fill that role with a trans person, or do you fill that role with just anybody? And I think it goes with the argument of, are you giving then these trans people opportunities, or is it the case that, oh, this is just an actor, like an actor should be able to play whatever kind of role and adapt themselves and be able to identify with that role anyway? And it was so interesting to me, because I don't think that I can necessarily pick a side, because I kind of agree with both a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. I think it's maybe it's more about the moment in time that we're at, where, I feel like the trans community is really like going, like, I would say starting to making strides to go mainstream. It sort of feel like being gay and lesbian is almost there. Like it's much more accepted, and like in, like ABC sitcoms, you have gay characters and all this stuff. Like it's they've made a lot of strides, and now I feel like the trans community's like, I mean, you're hearing, and there's a lot more hearing and talking about them openly in the new media and TV and etc. I think maybe it is important to do that now, to showcase them whenever it makes sense, like to have them be in the limelight and not have someone else like play them at this juncture. But it's I don't know, it's debatable.
Go on.
I think with Laverne's case, I think it was easier for her to step into that role because she's kind of made this name for herself. Yeah. Whereas if you were just casting the role, you would cast maybe someone who's the best actor.
Yeah, not an unknown necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
That being said, too, I think, so if you're a small production and you've only got so much money and so much time, you cast who you can cast.
Yeah.
And you do your best, if you can go for diversity and go for the right person for the role in all regards, great, but you just get the best you can get. If you if you're like Fox and you have a pretty big budget and you have a pretty big reach, you get the difference between the best trans actors and the best not trans actress or actor is going to be negligible.
Right.
So if you have the reach, you have that opportunity and you have those things available to you, you make a try for it. And I think that's
the big difference there.
Right.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of the Transparent, the Amazon show.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but there they have Jeffrey Tambor, who's a straight guy, playing, somebody who transitions. Mm-hmm. And so there was some debate about that as well. And it's like,
and he himself has said, if they were casting the role or it was remade or reprised, then it shouldn't be him that was, it should be an actual trans woman or that was being this character. Mm-hmm. But, the challenge is you need people to kind of bust the mold sometimes. Yeah. And if they're doing it with respect and doing it with they're trying to embody the character
and doing it
correctly.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And they have, I think it was done well, but it's just, it's one of the questions that came up.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that, because there are actual trans actors, actresses
on the show.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know.
I haven't seen it on stage outside of productions that were filmed, the Hedwig. I saw the movie a bunch, but yeah, I would probably like to see it on stage at one point, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you go out and see a lot of musicals live?
No, not really. I'm kind of like you in that regard, where I will probably. It's weird, actually. It's a little bit of a twist on that, because like I haven't listened to Book of Mormon's music, and I've actually like avoided Hamilton's music for the most part, because those are shows I want to see.
Unless I make you listen to it.
Yeah, unless she sings them at me all the time. So unless if there's a show that I know I want to see, I'll avoid it.
Then you kind of want the full experience
Right.
going into it.
I'll want to enjoy it in its context.
Yeah.
And because that kind of helps me. If it's a show that I probably know I won't see, then listening to it on a CD or watching it on video is okay. Like that's more acceptable to me. And if I watch it, but then that sort of opens the opportunity. If I really like it, I watch it on video. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these shows, living not in New York when I was younger, you just had to watch shows how you could get them.
Yeah.
And a lot
right,
of
and
them
if
were on
you
video.
were lucky enough, they recorded the Broadway productions.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Legally.
Yeah. Of course.
that's kind of my bent on it. Jules, you'd seen the movie?
Yeah, I'd seen the movie, and I have not seen it live. And I mean, I've never even looked it up. Like, I had no idea. Like, so it was really cool to see what the live version was like and how different it was from the movie.
Now, do you remember if you saw the movie in the theaters?
I believe I did.
Yeah, I think so. I think I did as well.
Yeah. And it blew my socks off. It was pretty awesome.
Again, another kind of, it was, as a movie, it's a little bit of a cult movie too.
Yeah, yeah. And it was super fresh at the time. I mean, I think it still is. Like, it's still a very unique thing. And I mean, I think also for me at the time, like, I was kind of just opening myself up to musicals, but I'll talk about that more later. But it was it was a great one.
Kristen, had you seen the movie? You hadn't seen the movie at all prior to this?
No, I had not.
Cool.
But you had listened to some of the songs.
Right. Yeah. Mostly from the Broadway recording, of course.
Now
you're a purist.
So I guess I'm not super qualified to speak to the songs, but are there any songs that stand out for you in this production?
Yeah, definitely. If only I could pull the titles out of my brain here.
I might have them sing a ditty of it, and I can tell you what it is.
Sing a ditty of it. I don't know if I could do it justice.
Midnight Radio.
Midnight Radio. Midnight Radio. Yes. I can't say that I recognized it as much just now, but I do remember the song. That is actually one that I think I listened to multiple times. When I was first going through, I listened to it purely from the beginning to the end, just so I could get the whole idea of it as a whole. And then I went back and kind of replayed a few songs, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really feeling this one. I totally remember that one. That and The Origin of Love. I liked a lot, and Sugar Daddy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Sugar Daddy I think is my favorite.
And there's a few different, depending, like the movie has a version, there's a Broadway version. I've heard a few different takes on Sugar Daddy. Like some it's a little more Western and swinging.
I've got a sweet tooth for licorice drops and jelly rolls. Hey, Sugar Daddy, Hanson needs some sugar in his bowl.
And some it's a little like harder.
I've got a sweet tooth for licorice drops and jelly rolls. Hey, Sugar Daddy, Hansel needs some sugar in his bowl.
which they're all kind of interesting takes.
Would you say the musical or the Broadway versions like more Western or a little bit harder, or?
I think it's a little bit harder maybe than the movie
Yeah,
one.
because I was thinking and remembering back, I was thinking, oh yeah, that's why I like this. It's kind of driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the movie, it's a little like swingier, like Sugar Daddy, take me. Yeah, it's a little like bouncier.
Yeah.
It's a little less like hard hitting.
Yeah.
And
maybe they, I guess they probably did that because of what we were talking about earlier. It's kind of more like you're there at the concert the whole time.
right.
Yeah, and it feels more like it's a punk band, and
Yeah.
they play and they kind of stick to a similar style most of the ways through, which makes sense. Like you would,
Yeah.
it would be harder to switch up the styles
Right.
or whatever.
And there's a song that it might be a little different in the musical as well, the Wicked Little Town. It's actually sung twice. There's
Is there a reprise of it?
there's like the Hedwig version, and then there's the Tommy Gnosis version.
Oh, yeah.
So it's sort of in the movie, it's the one that it's the seduction of the sort of introduction of music to Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, the reprise is Tommy
Taking that and...
Yeah, and also sort of absolving and forgiving Hedwig with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of like he's giving back with it, and saying goodbye with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I like that song, "Wicked Little Town."
Jules, did you have a favorite song from Hedwig?
I think Sugar Daddy.
Sugar Daddy, yeah.
That's my favorite one. And yeah, no, the story that goes with it and everything. I don't know, it's all pretty funny. Like I like it's like messed up, but also like
It's
like
messed up.
it's like the way it's brought up.
Gloomy bears.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a caricature of that idea, you know. Like, but it's fun though, even though it's dark.
So a lot of good metaphors for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Musicals and their metaphors and everywhere in between.
Yeah, I one kind of last note for me. I like the structure. I like the flow. Like you can get the story just from the songs for the most part,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
without it being too didactic or too what is it? What's the term when something is like giving you all the information in a story?
Yeah, when it's more...
Expository.
Yeah, like when it's just a song that's just songs that are all exposition.
exposition. There you
When
go.
you're going like, hey, it's all this, it's all that.
Yeah.
Yay, this is this. It has enough like room for interpretation that just the banter between songs is enough to fill in the cracks and get you to the next piece
Yeah.
without you don't need it's not a huge set piece musical. And I really like that opens room for the people who are directing it to play with it more,
Yeah.
but also lets it stand pretty solidly as a musical without feeling too much like a bunch of disjointed songs or too much like this slog of, and then we walked down the street, and then we found a chair, and then we sat upon the chair, and then I saw a guy, like,
Less of a more traditional musical, obviously.
Well, and I like that element too. That it's sort of meta, you know, like because they're musicians who play concerts, you know, like so it's like even though it's a musical, it still has like that feels natural that they're communicating through music,
right.
rather than like a traditional musical where you just, of course, like because it's a musical, everyone sings, their stuff. So it has that like meta quality that makes it, again, I think like easier to get into if you're not a musical person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Are you
almost
saying-
like
what
rock.
are you saying,
I'm
Jules?
gonna get into that. I'm gonna get to like during my.
So kind of
segment.
like, yes, it's also a
But-
little like rock documentary
Yeah,
in that regard
yeah.
too.
And I also, and again, we kind of alluded to earlier before you had told the story, but I love that element that it's the person it's not about the famous rock star. It's about the person that made them, who's behind the scenes for a lot of it. And I kind of like that. I don't see that story kind of story very often. I thought that was an interesting.
Usually
take.
the people who get left behind or the people who are the secondary characters don't really get their stories told fully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you see them through the lens of the person who succeeded.
Right.
And it's like they're just
It's
there.
kind of like a skewed view of them. You really don't see them.
Yeah, and they're just there to make the to be like the hero's flaw that
Right,
they
they're more
then have
about-
to mend.
They're
you know?
more about the they're in the negative space to define this character
Yeah.
and its relationship to the world.
Yeah,
which is really nice.
exactly.
So my
But also it's cool that it's not somebody who's just going to lay down and take it. Who's
Right.
like going out there.
Who's
to
going to be a
try to
doormat. Yeah.
yeah.
They have their own agency, yeah. So one last question: would you, if someone's coming to New York and they're like, what should I see on Broadway? Would you over the stuff that's kind of out there now, would you recommend them see Hedwig and the Angry Inch?
So if it was playing on Broadway right now, I think I would definitely recommend it.
Over Mary Poppins or whatever?
Over Mary Poppins, yes. But I think that you just picked a great show for me to say over Mary Poppins, yes.
All right, so which one, what show over this would you say? And I mean, of course, it's going to depend on the crowd.
Right.
Too. Like, Grandma, put your drag on.
Grandma, you'd love this.
Grandma might actually love it. I think it's Grandpa who would
have the issues.
Who would struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my gut.
Well,
generally, I think grandmas are pretty down with.
But Grandpa's got to accept. He's been repressing a lot of stuff.
I don't know. My grandma's seen a lot of musicals. I think she's seen Rent, so I think she might. This just might be the next step for her on her musical journey.
Seen it 525,000 times.
She saw when Maureen flashed the audience her bare butt. She looked at me and was like, "Are you seeing what I'm
Where'd she get a bare butt from? Those are expensive." She killed that bear butt herself.
But yeah, I mean, what are your top musicals that are out right now? Like, what's your go-to? I mean, what is the one that you're like, you gotta?
If someone came to New York right now,
like, what's the one I need to go see?
Get tickets to?
Well, I mean, yeah. So
like Hamilton's out of the question, obviously.
Yeah.
Is Book of Mormon still on stage?
Book of Mormon is still on.
You can get
also
tickets.
difficult though.
Yeah, I mean, you have to plan ahead.
Fairly expensive. You've got to plan ahead to get tickets to Book of Mormon.
Definitely expensive.
Fun Home.
Oh, I really want to see that.
I don't think they're about to close, actually. No. I think they announced their date, and then they're setting a tour date. Because Kate Shindle now stepped into the lead role. So
it's probably going to be hard to get tickets now because it's going to close.
Not necessarily. No. I won tickets to go see that in the lottery. I just entered the lottery once and won tickets, and it's phenomenal. I really loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the graphic novels, so I really want to see it.
I would definitely recommend Fun Home. Get there before it closes, guys.
Another great play about identity or musical about identity and discovering yourself.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Identity and relationships, that how those parental relationships like fail you and then can also build you up at the same time.
Yeah.
What else? Fiddler on the Roof. It's a classic. Mm-hmm. It's done incredibly well.
It's
on
right
Cats.
Now. It's kind of Little Bub and
Grumpy
Cat.
I haven't seen the new Cats yet.
I would actually be more likely to see it, but a little bit.
I think it's gonna have stuff like that.
No.
Well, because the thing is, Cats is a really weird musical where it's not.
It's
not
about
like
cats.
Continuous. It's like a bunch of vignettes.
Right.
It's also like I know.
So there's no rising action. There's no climax, and then falling action.
Yeah. So it's just sort of like, here's a song with some characters, and all the characters happen to be cats.
It's funny because all I know, like, I only know Cats as sort of like a pop culture meme, like, because it was kind of like the kind of weird, goofy musical that was around, and so it was often made fun of. If there was some reference made to a musical or something, it was Cats almost always.
But I just
that's all I know about it.
Like, I don't get. I guess maybe because I wasn't alive in that time, but I don't get what the draw to it is. I think it's like the third or fourth longest running musical. And I don't know how and I don't know why, because I guess I love this traditional show with a book and you have a story and a plot that you follow. And
so what is Cats like? 'Cause again, I don't know anything about it.
It's like, it's a series of minutes. So it's almost like a mixtape. Like, here's a song.
About cats?
Yeah. So it's all people dressed like cats.
It's based off of
Garfield.
No.
Lasagna.
It's based off of short stories or poems by what's his name?
Crazy Cat Lady.
No, it's based off of poems, a book of poetry, T.S. Eliot.
Ah.
And so they made, what's his name? Who wrote the music? I'm blanking on everything.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Andrew Lloyd Webber? Didn't he? He did.
Yeah.
Here he is again.
So he wrote the music, and they adapted it from these T.S. Eliot poems about cats.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I mean, you can kind of see, like, oh, there's this poem about Grisabella, the glamour cat, and then there's this poem about Skimbleshanks.
Yeah. And I think, too, it's sort of like, it's supposed to be satire or like viewing our reality or our society from an outside perspective. So sort of,
from the cat point of view.
Here, yeah, like looking at these aliens and seeing ourselves in them.
Gotcha.
Kind of thing. It's the other part of Cats. And people love this. So what's the big song in it?
Memory?
It's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Memories of the way we once was.
That is not the right show. That is just not it. That's a
Misty
completely-
watercolored memories of the way we once was.
Or the way we were, you know.
Yeah, again, I know that song, but just from references, like.
Yeah, is it Bette Midler that sings it? Like, that's kind of a famous.
Yeah, but it was also from that movie Ice Castles. Ice Castles? Yeah.
Cool Running.
No.
With the Jamaican Bobsled team.
Ice Castles.
That had a song from
Ice
Cats?
Castles from 1978. Yeah. It's a tearjerker, guys.
Wow. But it has the song from Cats in it.
That was not the song from Cats. He was
Okay.
not singing
See,
the song from
I don't
Cats.
know. Okay.
What's the song?
okay.
All right, sing a little of it.
So there's a different
What?
memory song
Memories.
from
Now,
Cats?
now I just can't even think of how it goes. It's like what is it, like midnight? Da 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 da.
All alone in the moonlight.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. Yeah. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Da, da,
There you go.
da, 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 da. Da, 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 da.
Okay.
Misty watercolored memories.
No, guys.
Yeah, I think those shows are a lot harder to watch. The just a bunch of songs shows are
Yeah.
a little harder for me because then I feel like, well, why am I just not at a concert or?
And why are these artists at this concert dressed as cats?
Yeah.
And crawling through the audience.
Yeah, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's on Broadway right now. It's not on Broadway right now. It's traveling right now.
Broadway tour. I think it just started in San Diego.
All right. So you can go check that out if you can go to San Diego.
Catch it as it tours the U.S.
Yeah, you could do that too. You could follow
Maybe it's
it.
coming to a town near you. Don't travel to it, maybe.
So go see it. You can also watch clips of it on YouTube.
Or you can watch the film.
Or you can rent the
Or
movie
you can
purchase
live
the
stream
movie.
the music on Spotify.
Yeah. There are all kinds of, you can purchase the album as well. They're also working on a sequel right now.
Really?
Whoa,
sequel
dropping the bomb like
film?
that, John.
Like a sequel film?
I don't know if it'll be a film. It might
Or a
just
sequel
be,
Broadway thing?
might be a sequel Broadway thing.
A sequel musical play.
Broadway thing.
Intriguing.
Yeah, so that's where it may go. So I recommend it. I really like the show. It sounds like you guys didn't hate it.
No, I
No,
really like
not
it.
at all.
And I really love the film as well. So, I think it's great, not just as a musical, but as a film. So I would definitely recommend that too.
All
So
right.
5-star rating from Jules.
Boom.
All right, so that was my pick, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Go see it where we said you can see it.
All the places.
And check the show notes for
Yeah.
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of the New to You Show. I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho and on Instagram at bored, BORED _ghost, GHOST.
And I'm Julian Cage. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at BeautifulJules.
And I'm Kristen Sherman, and you can find me on Instagram at Kristen Sherm at KRISTNSHERM.
All right. And before we roll out, Jules, what was new to you this week?
New to me this week is Inktober. So Inktober is something an illustrator started.
It's an organized event,
Yeah.
online event,
Yeah,
social media.
organized online artist event. So, so it's an illustrator started it, and essentially, I think he puts out there's an Inktober.com where you can kind of learn about it, and he has an official prompts list. So the goal is to post one ink drawing every day for the month of October, So it's a drawing a day. It's 31 drawings total. And I mean, I think he started it because he wanted to improve his inking skills. And so it was like that personal challenge. Part of what I like about it is it's pretty open. I mean, it's kind of ink, but it can be digital ink or physical ink or brush or
And
whatever
there
you
are
want
those
to do.
who say otherwise.
Well,
Not
but
me,
no,
I
but
don't
the
care.
the official one, the one that was started by the illustrator, like he says, it's pretty much like it's very loose, very flexible, and if you miss a day, it's fine. You can catch up, whatever. So I've
Have you
been
missed any days?
so far. I have not missed one. I have posted after midnight several times, but it's always
You've always done it that day.
yeah, it's always the previous day somewhere. So
Congrats.
usually California time. Yeah, yeah. So I've done whatever. Well, I guess I won't say because we don't know when this will be published, but.
Probably after October will be over.
Yeah. So I've been sticking with it. It is challenging, partly because I'm overdoing it most days, and like doing because you can do anything from a quick doodle to a full-on illustration, and I've been doing something somewhere in the middle, and I'm pretty rusty, but it has gotten me drawing again, which I hadn't been doing, and it's been a lot of fun. So, check out my Instagram at Beautiful Jewels for the month of October, and you'll get to see all my drawings.
I've
And-
also been doing the Inktober this time. Pretty good about it.
Yeah, I've
I've been
been.
pretty consistent. The nice thing about it is you get to see everybody's drawings,
Yeah.
and everyone's really different. And I don't follow the prompts. Like I
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
do whatever I
many
want.
many people don't. I just do it because it helps
Is there a
unstuck
prompt
me.
for each day? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, there is.
Oh.
And there's actually a few. I mean, there's an official one, quote unquote, and there's also a series of unofficial ones that so people are following a different prompt lists, and some people don't use lists at all.
Cool.
Yeah,
And it's really nice too because you'll see people who like, oh, I didn't know they draw, or it's nice to see this person drawing again or drawing at all. Like and not everyone's like amazing. It's sometimes just, I know it's like Pictionary. Sometimes you get to see someone, especially off a prompt, draw their concept, and that can be the fun part of it too.
You kind of see everyone's personality a little bit.
Yeah,
shining
exactly.
through their art.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
yeah, and it's fun because there's it's all followed like through hashtags.
They're
so-
mostly schizophrenics.
So you
and,
can kind of
psychopaths.
Yeah,
I'm
so
like,
you
oh
can-
my god, that
so
guy.
You're
you
like,
can
yeah,
just-
definitely that guy.
So you can just follow the
John.
hashtag and just see like the hundreds and hundreds of people who are all doing it, and so it does help too. Like makes you feel like you're part of this bigger thing, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so there's two hashtags usually. There's like hashtag Inktober and then the year, like 2016.
Yeah.
And then they'll just be hashtag Inktober.
Yeah.
So the two kind of like running hashtags, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they do it by year, I think, so you can see everything from that specific year. And I have not been doing that. Maybe I should start. I've just been doing hashtag Inktober, but I kind of hate posts that have like a million hashtags, so maybe that's why.
So Kristen, you have a you have an Instagram account. So you're
I
gonna
do.
Draw.
I will be watching out and looking out for those drawings of you.
You're gonna do Blinktober, where you just post a photo of you with your eyes closed.
Linktober.
Is there anything like that in the musical theater world? Are there any hashtag movements?
Or, yeah, like,
and
so,
monthly
like,
challenges?
I don't think
Like
there are
song a
as
day or
many
anything.
many monthly challenges as there are for other topics of art or variations of art.
It's a lot easier with visual art. Obviously, you can just post a picture and
Yeah.
it
Well,
does it all.
now the Instagram, and you had like Snapchat. Well, Instagram more has the stories, right? Can
yeah.
you just like, and Vine had it. Like I
Do a
know
musical
people,
a day.
Do a musical a
could.
day. Like
You
a song,
could.
like just a refrain, a bar a day or something.
Here's my 16
Misty
bar cut
watercolored
of,
memories. Like,
of not the memories John is singing.
31 days of memories.
I have.
And I think the
8
song is actually just
memories.
called The Way We Were. not even Memory or Memories.
Well, on that note,
Yeah, we'll have links to everybody's contact information and Instagrams.
Maybe of the right song for John.
I don't know about that. And Hedwig and the other content we talked about in the show this evening on our website at newtoyoushow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at newtoyoushow, and we're also on Facebook, sorta. You can mostly look for my Facebook, or you can also look for us on YouTube, look for New to You Show. Also follow on iTunes, leave a review or comments if you want to. That'd be nice. And that's actually probably the best way to keep on top of when the show is coming out, either following us on Twitter or subscribing through a podcast app like iTunes. We're also on Google Play. And there's lots of ways to listen to New to You Show. Thanks, Kristen, for coming on.
Yeah,
it's
thanks
really
for
nice having
me,
you.
guys.
We're going to have you back again next week and go into another pick for musicals.
Can't wait.
In the meantime, it may not be new, but maybe it's new to you.
Kind of an explosion. Doing that for Keith.
This pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.
With him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead. They're two separate.